Hi, welcome back to the second video of Unit 9B, Day 4, our last set of notes for this unit, Equations of Circles, where we're applying this formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where my h and my k are the center, the x and the y from the center of the circle, and then the r is the radius of the circle. So let's continue practicing to do that. Remember, I said the very first thing I like to always do is write the formula without the h, k, and r in it. So I'm going to write my x minus close parentheses squared plus y minus close parentheses squared equals my radius squared. So now all I have to do is fill in what's missing, right? So I look at my center and I look at its x and its y. That's my h and my k. So the x goes with x, the y goes with y, and the radius goes after the equals. And so now all I have to do is simplify any double negatives, and I have to square my radius. Okay, so I have a double negative here, so x plus 1 squared, plus I have a double negative here, so y plus 4 squared, equals 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. So here is my formula, or my equation, for a circle with a center at -1, -4, and a radius of 2. Let's look at number 4. I have a center at the origin and a diameter of 4. So a center at the origin, remember that means 0, 0. And if my diameter is 4, that means my radius is 4 divided by 2, because it's half the diameter. So my radius is 2. All right, x minus close parentheses squared plus x, or y minus close parentheses squared equals my radius squared. All right, my origin, so my x is 0 and my y is 0, and then my radius is 2. Now here's kind of another little thing that I didn't put up here. It's not, I know I said double negatives and squaring the radius, but we also need to, I didn't think to add it over here, we are also going to, and zeros, I'm going to add that in there, and zeros. Okay, so x minus 0, and that hopefully you know if you're not taking anything away from it, you are just x, right? And I don't need to, now that there's just an x, there's nothing else with it, I don't have to put it in parentheses, because x with parentheses squared and just x squared, they're the exact same thing. Plus over here, same thing, y minus 0 is just y squared, equals, and then over here 2 squared is 2 times 2, that is 4. So we're also going to go ahead and simplify zeros. So double negatives, zeros, and then square the radius. All right, let's look at the next one, because the next one's a little bit tricky. When I look at the next one, my center is at 3, -4, and I pass through -1, -4. So this one is kind of interesting because they didn't give me a radius, right? So when I do that, it's going to be a little bit harder because I need to figure out what the radius is. So let's think about if we were to kind of sketch this. I'm not going to do a really beautiful sketch of this circle, but my center is at 3, -4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here. And I pass through -1, -4. -1, -4. So my circle is going to look something like this. Right? I need to know how long is this piece right here. Okay? Well, what's kind of cool is because both of them have a y value of -4, it's a horizontal little segment here, right? And it runs from negative or positive. Oh wait, sorry, I lied. I didn't lie. I made an error. There's a difference between lying and making an error. -1, -4. It was a bigger circle than I had made it. Not going to fit on my paper. Not a great circle drawer. Sometimes they end up looking a little more egg-like. Okay. All right, but still same thing. Because my y values are both here at -4, it's kind of nice because this is a nice little horizontal piece here, which means I know I'm going from -1 to 3, so that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The distance here is going to be 4. So my radius, we can see, is 4, okay? So now I'm ready to do my equation. My x minus, close parentheses squared, plus y minus, close parentheses squared, equals my radius squared. They gave me my center. My center is at 3, -4. So my x is 3. That goes with x. My y is -4. That goes with y. And then my radius, we found out by graphing it and looking at it that my radius is 4. So now I just have to simplify double negative zeros and square my radius. I don't have any zeros, but I do have a double negative. So x minus 3 squared plus y minus a -4 is really y plus 4 squared. And then 4 squared is 4 times 4, 16. Okay, and that works great to graph this if you end up with a horizontal radius or if you end up with a vertical radius. But sometimes when we look at our figure, it's not going to be horizontal or vertical, and we're going to have another way of figuring out what that radius is. So let's do a quick example looking at that. Okay? All right, so number 6. My center is at 0, 3, and I pass through 2, 0. Okay? So let's see what that looks like if I were to graph it. Okay? So I'm going to graph 0, 3, 0, and then 1, 2, 3. There's my center. And then I'm going to pass through 2, 0. 1, 2, and then I'm not going to go up 2, 0 right here. So my circle is going to be, if I could draw a circle, it's going to look something like this, right? So now my radius is this diagonal here. Okay, so I need to either use Pythagorean theorem or I need to use the distance formula to figure this out. But I can use Pythagorean theorem. That's probably the easiest. I can see I'm going to have to go over 1, 2 units, and then I'm going to have to come down 1, 2, 3 units. So this distance here is 2. This distance here is 3. And I want to know how long is this piece here. Okay, so to find my radius is really a hypotenuse in this little right triangle that I drew. My radius is really a hypotenuse in that little right triangle that I drew. Okay, so if my radius is a little hypotenuse, or is the hypotenuse of this little triangle, then I know inside my square root I'm going to be adding for hypotenuse. My two numbers are 3 and 2. 3 squared, 2 squared. So my radius, which is my hypotenuse, is going to be 3 squared plus 2 squared. So my radius equals the square root of 13. And I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm not going to figure out what the decimal is, okay? Because I can see into the future, and I know I want to leave it like that. You'll see why in just a minute. All right, so now I know what my radius is. I know what my center is. So my circle is x minus the x from the center squared plus y minus the y from the center, close parentheses squared, equals my radius squared. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and grab my center. The x is 0, the y is 3, and my radius is the square root of 13. Can you see why I didn't want to get that as a decimal? All right, let's simplify double negative, zeros, and radii being squared. So I don't have a double negative, but I do have a 0 here, which means this turns into just x squared, because x minus 0 is x, and then we're squaring it. Plus, there's nothing to do here, y minus 3 squared equals. Now remember, what happens when you square a square root? They cancel out. So this becomes just 13, which is why I didn't want to make it into a decimal, because you'd be rounding it to make it a decimal, and then you'd be squaring a rounded answer, which might not give you exactly the 13 you need. Okay, but 13 is exactly the correct answer. When you square a square root, they cancel each other out, and you have just the number that was inside the square root. Okay? Look at number 7 and 8 real quick. When we look at number 7 and 8, we'll just do number 7. We'll leave 8 for the last video. When we look at number 7 and we want to figure out what is the formula or what is the equation for this, we're going to start off the exact same way. X minus the x from the center squared. Y minus the y from the center squared equals my radius squared. So let's see, what is my center? This center right here is the point -2, -1. So -2, -1. What's my radius? Well, just count, right? How many boxes over do you have to go? Or you could say, how many boxes down do I have to go till I get to the edge? 1, 2. And now we simplify double negatives, zeros, and square our radius. So double negative x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. And we'll do another one of these where we're just using the graph instead of being given the information when we come back in the next video. And then we'll talk about, well, if I'm given the equation to start with, can I figure out what the circle is going to look like? So come on back for that last video to see how to work with the equation instead of starting from where the circle center is. All right, thanks for watching. Come on back for the last video.